My sister had a talent for finding new ways to drain my patience, but using my savings without a single word crossed a line I didn't even think she'd dare touch. I found out on a quiet Sunday morning, standing in the driveway, staring at a bright red two-seater sports car parked like some trophy she won. She strutted out of the house with the keys spinning on her finger, acting like she'd just done something clever. I asked where the money came from. She laughed. Not nervously, not apologetically. She laughed like it was obvious. She said I never used my savings anyway, so she borrowed them to buy a car she had no business driving or affording. My chest tightened as I checked my account and saw the number. Nearly everything I had saved for years, gone. When I confronted my parents, they barely flinched. My dad sighed, annoyed that I was making a scene. My mom shrugged and said my sister deserved something nice after the hard year she had. None of them cared that I had been working 2 jobs, cutting corners, sacrificing everything to build that savings. To them, my effort was disposable. Hers was sacred. I stood there, surrounded by people who felt entitled to my work, my time, my future. That was the moment I stopped arguing and went quiet. Not because I accepted it, but because I knew silence meant I was planning. And once I started planning, nothing they did could stop what was coming next. I spent the next few days pretending to be calm. My sister drove that car everywhere, revving the engine just loud enough to remind me she'd won. My parents acted like nothing had happened. They even praised her for being independent, as if using my savings counted as self-reliance. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply watched, listened, and quietly gathered everything I needed. The car wasn't registered in her name. She hadn't bothered with paperwork or insurance. She bought it using my account, my ID, and my information. She didn't even try to hide it. The dealership had copies of my documents. My parents had encouraged her to just use yours. It's easier. They didn't think I'd do anything about it because they assumed I wouldn't risk the family dynamic. They had forgotten something important. I had nothing left to lose. I went to the dealership on my lunch break. They remembered the purchase and were confused when I explained I hadn't bought anything. Once they pulled up the signatures and compared them to mine, the manager's face tightened. He knew what this could become, a legal problem that could drag the dealership into mess. I assured him I wasn't after them. I wanted the paperwork corrected and the fraud documented. He agreed and gave me what I needed, official statements confirming the purchase was made using my identity without my authorization. Then I spoke with my bank. Because the transaction was massive and unauthorized, they escalated the case quickly. My account was already flagged from the moment I called. They froze the remaining balance and launched their investigation. They explained what would happen next. The funds could be reclaimed, the car repossessed, and the person responsible held legally accountable. I didn't give them names. I didn't need to. The documents spoke for themselves. The turning point came sooner than I expected. My sister came home early one afternoon to find a tow truck backing into the driveway. She ran out screaming at the driver, waving her hands like she owned the whole neighborhood. But the driver had orders. The car wasn't registered. The bank had flagged it. The dealership had submitted the fraud report. He wasn't there to negotiate. He was there to collect. My parents rushed outside, furious. For her, of course, not for me. They yelled at the tow operator, blaming him, blaming the bank, blaming anyone except the girl who stole thousands from me. My sister cried, acting like she was the victim of some tragic injustice. They all turned to me, expecting me to explain myself. I kept my voice steady. I didn't raise it once. I told them the truth. The car wasn't hers, the money wasn't hers, and the bank was recovering what belonged to me. The shock on their faces wasn't from the situation itself. It was because they realized I was no longer their silent doormat. My sister stormed toward me, calling me selfish for taking her car back. It was almost unbelievable. She took my savings, but I was the selfish one. The next blow hit them even harder. The bank notified them that someone would be contacted for further investigation regarding identity misuse. That someone was her. My parents froze. They finally understood this wasn't a petty sibling argument. This was legal. This was real. And they couldn't hide it with excuses, guilt trips, or emotional manipulation. That night, my mother knocked on my bedroom door. For the first time in years, she spoke softly. She asked me to drop the case, saying my sister didn't understand what she was doing. She begged, saying the consequences could ruin her future. I listened, but I remembered every moment they dismissed me, every time they acted like I didn't matter, every time they told me to be the bigger person while they catered to her. I told her the same thing she once told me. You made your choices, now live with them. My father tried the next morning, but his version was more threatening than pleading. He said families don't involve authorities. I reminded him families also don't steal from each other, lie for each other, and then expect the victim to smile. He didn't like that answer. He never liked hearing the truth from me. My sister avoided me entirely, maybe hoping if she stayed silent, the whole mess would magically disappear. But things were already set in motion. Investigators were reviewing documents. The dealership had submitted statements. The car was gone. The money was on its way back to my account. By the end of the week, my parents finally understood something they never thought possible. I had boundaries now. And once they realized they couldn't bully or guilt me anymore, the house felt different, quieter, heavier, uncertain. They had always assumed I'd bend. This time, I didn't. In the days that followed, the tension at home shifted. My sister stayed in her room, sulking, barely speaking except when necessary. She no longer bragged about the car or tried to assert dominance. Every glance at me carried caution, almost fear. My parents, meanwhile, moved between awkward silence and forced civility, as if treading carefully around a new, unspoken rule. I realized something powerful had changed. I had reclaimed my voice, my agency, and my boundaries, and they were no longer negotiable. I didn't gloat. I didn't taunt. I simply lived normally, carrying on with my life, studying, working, and quietly enjoying the satisfaction of having acted decisively. The car remained gone. The funds were restored, and my sister was left to confront the consequences of her actions. Over time, she began to apologize, not just to me, but to herself, slowly recognizing that shortcuts built on deception come at a cost. My parents never fully admitted their mistakes, but they learned to respect the fact that I would no longer be overlooked, ignored, or manipulated. In the quiet that followed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: control, dignity, and the realization that standing up for yourself doesn't have to destroy a family. It can simply reset its balance. For the first time, I understood that being the bigger person didn't mean allowing others to take from you. It meant knowing when to act, when to wait, and when to reclaim what is rightfully yours. And this time, I did it.